Hi guys, Olive here today to tell you what's on my March 2023 TBR. We'll start off by talking about fiction, as we normally do, and you'll see that this month I have packed my TBR with mystery novels, because it is March Mystery Madness time. I have been waiting for this for such a long time. This is always the time of year that I really crave mystery novels, so March Mystery Madness comes at a really good time for me. It's an annual event here on BookTube, in case you've never heard of it. The concept is very simple. You just read mystery novels during the month of March. There is also a yearly theme. This year it's spring cleaning, which I'm going to incorporate in a few of my picks, but mainly I'm just going to pick up mystery novels that I've been wanting to read. But it's hosted by an amazing group of booktubers. I'm going to put links to all of their channels and links to information about this event down in the description box in case you want to learn more about it, in case you want to join in yourself. The first mystery novel that I'm planning to read in March is an Agatha Christie novel. This may shock you, but I've never read any Agatha Christie before. That has always struck me as a problem, and it's one that I aim to address during the month of March. March Mystery Madness is the perfect time to finally read some Agatha Christie. So the one that I chose, I picked because it was mentioned quite a bit in a nonfiction book that I read late last year called The Science of Murder. In that book, the author discusses the science behind a lot of the crime-solving tactics that can be found in Christie novels. And the novel of Christie's that was talked about the most glowingly in The Science of Murder was The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. This is the third Poirot novel, so I definitely won't be reading them in order, which is okay with me. And also apparently this is considered to be one of her best novels. So beginning with this one could either be a great idea or a terrible idea. I suppose I will find out here shortly. The mystery in this one, or should I say mysteries, is the death of a widow, very closely followed by the death of the man that she was going to marry. Beyond that synopsis and the few nuggets of information that I remember were in The Science of Murder, I don't know anything else about this, and I can't wait to see what I think of it. But March Mystery Madness also gives me the perfect excuse to continue on with a series that I started quite some time ago. The Key to Deceit by Ashley Weaver is the second book in the Electra McDonnell series, which is set during World War II. In the first book, we got to meet Electra, the main character, and we got to learn the entire premise of this series. And that's that in the first book, Electra gets caught breaking and entering, as is part of her family business, breaking into rich people's houses and lifting their valuables. But when she got caught, the police gave her two different options: use her skills to help them with the war effort, or go directly to jail. A pretty easy choice. In this book, Electra continues helping out, only this time she's looking into the mystery of the death of a woman who was very likely engaged in espionage while she was still living. Ashley Weaver's other series, the Amory Ames Cozy Mystery series, is my all-time favorite cozy mystery series. I don't like this series quite as much as I like that one, but I did really enjoy the first book, so I am very happy to continue on. Looking forward to reading this. There's also a new release coming out at the beginning of March that I fully intend to inhale. It's called The Golden Spoon by Jessa Maxwell, and it's a murder mystery that takes place on the set of a Great British Bake Off type show. I'm a huge fan of the Great British Bake Off, as I know a lot of us are. I feel like it really speaks to us bookish people. This has already been optioned to become a limited series on Hulu, and I can't wait to watch that. This was one of my most anticipated releases of this quarter for a reason. I am so hyped to read this. And the same thing goes for The Secrets of Heartwood Hall by BookTube's own Katie Lumsden. Katie runs the channel Books and Things. It's a fantastic channel that she runs. She also helps to host two different great annual BookTube events, Jane Austen July and Victober. I'd hazard a guess that you've at least heard of one of those. And she wrote a novel that is so incredibly her style. This is a gothic mystery all about a Victorian-era widow who accepts a position as a governess at a house that's rumored to be haunted. Katie was kind enough to put me in contact with her US publisher, and they sent me this copy. Thank thank you so much. If the quality of Katie's channel is any indication of what I can expect from this book, then I'm in for a good time. Now, I know I mentioned earlier that I did have a few books to fit the March Mystery Madness theme for this year, spring cleaning. And the 3 books that I have for this theme, there's a little bit of a story about why I bought them in the first place. A long time ago, I read this collection of murder mystery short stories that were written by women. It was called Sisters in Crime. I actually remember taking that book into work with me, and I would read one of the stories every single day over my lunch break, which was a really fun way to read through that book. But my favorite story in that collection was written by an author named K.K. Beck. I really liked the main character of that story, Iris Cooper. So when I did a little bit more research on that author and that character, I was delighted to find that she actually wrote an entire series starring Iris Cooper. So I went ahead and bought used copies of the 3 total books in that series: Death in a Deck Chair, Murder in a Mummy Case, and Peril Under the Palms. I bought these and then promptly got distracted by other books. So I still haven't read them. I would very much like to read them and then potentially clear them out of my collection if I don't want to reread them. That's kind of my policy when it comes to books that I have in my own personal collection. And if I do decide to get rid of them, then they will perfectly fit that spring cleaning theme. These are also short. I am sure I can blow through these very quickly. There's also one more mystery I would like to read during March, although it's quite unorthodox. It also just so happens to be my Storygraph recommendation of the month. If you missed my first 2 TBRs so far in 2023, for the foreseeable future anyway, every single month I'm going to be reading one recommendation that I got from the Storygraph app, which is kind of like a Goodreads alternative. And if you have a Plus membership, as I got for Christmas, you can input all of your different reading tastes and preferences, and they'll spit out recommendations for you. And I really want to see if they're any better at picking out novels for me than I am at picking them out for myself, because sometimes I pick out some real duds that I end up not liking, and that continues to happen. So I really want to take them up on some of their recommendations. I've written down a lot of them, and the one that I thought best suited March Mystery Madness was this weird book called Woman's World by Graham Rawl. This is a novel about a woman who comes to realize that there are some dark secrets involved in her brother's new romance. That alone doesn't sound too flashy, but what makes this book truly remarkable is that it's entirely composed of these cut and paste snippets taken from women's magazines. So it's like a ransom letter extended into book length. This sounds so pulpy, so odd, but completely original. And evidently the Storygraph thinks I'll like it, so we'll see if they're right. There is one non-mystery work of fiction on my March menu, and I'm definitely stepping outside of my comfort zone with this one, but I am planning on reading Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. This is a work of dystopian fiction set in 2025, which for the author would have been the distant future since she wrote this back in the early 90s. But for us, it's not that far off, and apparently a lot of what Octavia Butler predicted would happen actually has come to fruition, which is very scary to think about. I don't normally read science fiction or dystopian fiction, but I think it's good to push the boundaries of what you read sometimes, and this one is so universally loved that I think it's a pretty safe bet. But now let's move into nonfiction. Admittedly, there are fewer nonfiction books on this March TBR since I plan on spending the month very focused on mystery novels, which I'm looking forward to. But there's something else that I'm looking forward to in the month of March, and that's having a glass of wine. If you saw my February TBR, then you'll know that I wanted to take at least the majority of the month of February off from drinking alcohol, just to give myself a little bit of a break. But now that we're almost at the end of that dry February, I am thinking ahead to having my occasional glass of wine again, which is really all the more I drink these days. But as I was thinking about wine, I also realized that it had been a really long time since I had picked up a book about wine, and so I decided to pluck one off of my shelves called The Accidental Connoisseur by Lawrence Osborne. This book blends wine information and travel writing because the author travels to France, Italy, and California, three very famous wine-producing regions, to learn more about wine, how it's made, and how it's enjoyed. This one was recommended to me by a viewer of this channel right after I read and reviewed Cork Dork by Bianca Bosker, which is another great wine book, but I've been meaning to read this ever since that person suggested it to me. So I'm finally going to read it, and when I do, I'm going to have a glass of Sauvignon Blanc in my hand. A book about books also sounded appealing during this month of winter's last hurrah, so I also pulled Shelf Life by Nadia Wassef off of my own bookshelves. This is the story of the founding of the Egyptian bookstore Diwan and how it became an unlikely success. I've always wondered what it's like to run a bookstore, and I love hearing stories of women thriving in the business world, so I think I'm going to have a good time with this one. In March, I will also be reading 2 books off of my 23 nonfiction books I would like to read in 2023 list. The first of that pair is Entangled Life by Marilyn Sheldrake, which is all about the natural miracle that we call mushrooms, and Liar, Temptress, Soldier, Spy by Karen Abbott, which is about 4 women who worked as spies during the American Civil War. The only thing I have left to do is pick my random book off of my TBR for the month of March. If you've never seen me do this, I will very briefly explain the process. I go to my to-read shelf on Goodreads, I sort that shelf by number, and then I use a random number generator to help me select 3 different options. Those 3 options that I select must be books that I can read during that month. They can't be future releases. They can't be books that are out of print that I can't get my hands on. So once I have 3 viable options, I then think them over and I pick one of those 3 to read during the month. I have my laptop here to select my different options. The first option is Of Wolves and Men by Barry Lopez. The second option is The Mole People, Life in the Tunnels Beneath New York City by Jennifer Toth. And finally, the third option is Us Conductors by Shawn Michaels. I own the first 2 options, and that's something worth considering since I'm trying to read more books from my own collection, and The Mole People is definitely the more tempting of those 2. I've been wanting to read that one for such a long time, but I'm really drawn to Us Conductors. This one has something to do with spies from the synopsis that I just read, and 2 of the other books on this TBR have something to do with spies and espionage. So it just seems to fit the theme of the month more. So at risk of making this month way too fiction dominant, I'm going to go with Us Conductors. So those are all the books that I'm hoping to get to in the month of March. If you have thoughts on any of these books, if you want to read them, or if you have read them and you want to give me your opinions on them, I would love to hear from you in the comment section below. All the books that I mentioned today will be linked for you in the description box below for your clicking convenience. If you're on a mobile device, just tap the title of this video and that box will expand for you. And at the bottom of that exact same description box, you will also see links to everywhere you can find me around the internets, like Goodreads, Instagram, Storygraph, the places where I'm the most active, in case you would like to keep up with what I am reading and writing about right now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.